Have you ever wondered why it costs so much to build a basement or what it costs to build a basement? We're going to show you right here in this video. So there's a few key points as to the cost, right? This is a question that's common asked by our clients that, you know, I want to do a basement, but not realizing how much more expensive it is. Well, keep in mind, one of your first costs outside of the soils test that we're doing on any project anyways, is the excavation. So you can imagine, you can come in here, you can see how many cubic yards of soil we've had to remove to build this basement. This is going to be roughly 2,000 square feet. A bonus, you know, to the house that's going to be in a great air conditioned area because it's underground. But again, you have all this cubic yards of material that has to come out. So you have cost one, that's being removed. Cost two, again, you have these massive footings here. So you have massive footings that are here to support the house because this structure is going to be a main level and then a second story as well. And you see these forms here. So there's a cost to get all the forms up. You have all the rebar, vertical and horizontal rebar. Keep in mind, again, we're trying to keep this basement at roughly 10 feet in the clear, which means they're going to have 10-foot ceilings here in the basement. So that entails us to do our basement walls anywhere from 12.5 to 13.5 feet. Here on the high side, we're going to be roughly 13.5 feet, 12.5 feet. So you have to think that these are poured-in-place concrete walls. So 13-foot forms being set with rebar being poured in place concrete. Well, that's expense number two, right? The additional concrete and rebar and expertise for all the trades that come out and build, you know, that basement function, you know, to support this. Now, again, something that's really important, go back to the soils report. Now we have to look at excavation again, because we have to now backfill, which means as these walls have cured, you think about the build time. So if you're paying cash, it's one thing, but if you do have a bank loan, you know, it adds to the duration of the build, which means carrying costs and interest. And so there's a cost involved, maybe not major in proportion to the cost of the build, but it's still a cost. Now with the added time frame to go, you know, down as we're digging down as we are here, as we backfill, because this is expansive soil, we're not just gonna push this dirt back into the wall after it's cured for 28 days. We're actually gonna do this in lifts. And so now you have an engineer on site, usually a special inspector, and you're gonna be doing this in what they call 12-inch lifts. So every foot, every time we backfill 1 foot, we're testing the moisture content, we're testing the compaction, right, to make sure we hit these certain levels so that we don't have any settling in the future. The last thing you want when doing a basement is in a couple years from now, as you get a lot of rain or you're doing your landscape, you know that you start to have these pockets settle right around the house and you have these sinkholes, sink areas. So that's where it becomes really important. And one other element before the backfill is waterproofing, right? The last thing you want to do is have water coming through these walls into your basement. And so when this is cured and these forms are pulled, then we'll come in and we'll do the waterproofing. So again, a cost, you're installing this waterproofing around the entire perimeter of the build. And so the excavation, the waterproofing, the concrete itself, in some cases the masonry, depending on what the structural engineer dictates, you know, the forms and the rebar, and then, as I mentioned, the lifts as we backfill. These are all costs that otherwise you would not have if you were just, you know, working on a standard slab on grade. Now, something else to think about in addition to that is the blockouts here, because we're gonna have to come block this out so we have some window wells. Point being is you need to have not only natural light, but you have to have livable areas. You have to have an ability to escape, right? Just like in a normal bedroom, you have to have accessibility for people to escape in case of a fire. So you have typically added staircases. So maybe there's an exterior staircase. Sometimes it's done with structural steel. You have the interior staircase. So you think about the staircase itself, the railing, those are added costs. The window wells are added costs. And again, you're working around that landscape, and sometimes you'll have railing around the window wells, maybe a ladder in there depending on how deep it is based on the main level. So these are all just little elements that add to the cost, and in some cases maybe not a huge cost, but it's still an element you normally would not have. As you're looking to do your basement project on your next home, feel free to reach out to us and we'll be happy to answer any questions as far as what it typically costs depending on the size of the basement, what it can add per square foot to the build, you know, or just a generalized optional cost to the basement itself. Again, it's a value proposition, although there's the added cost. Again, that value add of more conditioned space, you know, quiet area that you could soundproof by adding insulation, you know, between us and the first floor, you know, that's a great area for kids to roam. And again, it's a great option, a great value for the family, as long as in most cases the budget aligns.